Hello and welcome back to the Raspberry Podcast. It has been a while. It's been a really long time. With the exception of Andrew Marshall, I have not put out a single podcast episode since the beginning of the pandemic, March last year. It's been a very long time. Obviously, I've had with all of the restrictions on travel and meeting up and stuff like that, I had the option of going online, sort of doing something over Zoom or Skype or something like that. But I just really refused to do anything like that, as I really think that for me anyway, personally, I feel like I want to sit in front of someone. I want to be there in person. I think it's really critical to having that human connection, and as well as having all of the advantages of the increased quality of audio and video that you get from being able to record live with someone. So I've been very patient, biding my time, and have not recorded basically any podcast in the last year and a half. But now with all of the restrictions easing in the UK and we're able to get together again, I am back and the podcast is back. I'm very, very excited about it. I have ambitious, perhaps, plans to put out an episode every 2 weeks for the rest of the year, which I've done something like that in the past, but when you're traveling around to different places around the country in order to sit down and chat to people, it can get a little bit time consuming, especially when you're busy with other stuff. But that is the goal. I've spoken to a lot of people, some really, really great guests that have agreed to come on. So I'm very, very excited about what the future will hold for the podcast. As for this episode today, I am joined by Matt Benyon. Matt is someone who is, I would say, one of the most influential figures of UK Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe even worldwide Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But a lot of people don't know him because he stays very much behind the scenes. He is he is one of the brains behind multiple very big brands, Jiu-Jitsu brands, such as Scramble, which is one of the biggest Jiu-Jitsu and MMA apparel brands in the world. And of course, Polaris, which is one of the biggest professional grappling shows in the world. So Matt has his finger in many pies when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and I've wanted to chat to Matt for a very long time. I think, he's an interesting guy. He's also a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So I wanted to talk to him about his journey in martial arts and how he started these brands, and what it was like starting two of the biggest brands in jiu-jitsu. And I was sure that he had many cool stories of the adventures that he's gone on with these brands. So yeah, finally managed to get down to Bournemouth to the Scramble offices and sit down with Matt for a chat. I'm very, very glad to be back recording. For everyone who has been patient, some people more patient than others, lots of people pestering me about when the next episodes are, when the episodes are coming back, when the podcast's coming back. And I just take that as a sign of everyone hungry for more, which I can only appreciate. So thank you very much for waiting. I hope you enjoy this episode. Check it out. Enjoy.
Checking.
Never let the count anything out. Matt Benyon, thank you very much for joining me on Raspberry Podcast. First one back in a very, very, very long time.
Bit rusty.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out. How have you been, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
We are in the green room of, what's the name of the studio that you have there? Beams Studio. This is a new...
Is it Beam or Beams? I think it's Beams.
We'll find out. This is a new studio that you've set up in, connected to your Scramble offices for doing media stuff. And
we recently moved into a new office, which I think we've been in the same place, the same warehouse for about 7-8 years or something. And this was an opportunity that was like just too good to pass up, really. So we've got a nice big office space, and we've built a studio in there for filming, photography, and this is the green room. People can rent the studio, they get to hang out in the green room, coffee machine.
In this case, we're just using the green room as a podcast studio.
Exactly. Yes.
Works well. So you're sort of I've been wanting to do a podcast with you for years, and you're sort of a interesting figure in the UK, maybe even worldwide jiu-jitsu scene, because you are a behind-the-scenes sort of guy. I think a lot of people will know the brands that you are connected to, but won't necessarily know you personally. Some of those brands, obviously some of the biggest brands in Europe, some of the biggest brands in the world, which is Polaris and Scramble that you're a part of. I wanted to chat to you. We'll talk about those. But I just wanted to talk about you in general and your journey through martial arts, because I think a lot of people probably won't know that you're also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Believe it or not.
So, as I do with most of these podcasts, let's start at the beginning. What was your, how did you get into martial arts?
I did karate as a kid, like lots of people do. Didn't really, I enjoyed it a lot, but it didn't really stick. In fact, I wasn't sporty at all. I still wouldn't call myself sporty, but if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, I'd be in a whole different situation, I think. But the real, it really started at university. I had my housemate was obsessed with Kung Fu, and that sort of rubbed off on me. Like he presented it. It was very mysterious and really fun. And I completely bought into it. It was like, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, ancient masters stuff. And it was just amazing. I was completely like obsessed with it. And we used to train. He wouldn't even tell me what we were doing. He would just show me moves and stuff. And it was all, he did it.
So you just trained just with him?
Yeah, I think he was kind of teaching a couple of us. I don't know, for what, whatever, I was at a certain stage in my life and it was just perfect. I was bang into it. I was like, this is amazing. And I was struggling a little bit at uni. I think I was mentally too young to be at university. Like I couldn't concentrate. And they're like forcing cheap booze down your neck every night. And I just, I had a good experience. I learned a lot, but I couldn't do it, properly. So at the end of the second year, I went to Australia because there was a Kung Fu guy in Chinatown in Australia that was like amazing. And he was like welcoming people from all around the world to come and train. So I went and did that.
That's a long way to travel for Kung Fu.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to get away as well. And, it was like go and live in Australia for a few months. And I slept on the floor, and the guy, one of the instructors had like a room that he rented. And I really lived like a full-on Kung Fu obsession for a few months. I can't remember. I think I got a letter from the university that basically said, you're a shit student and you don't need to come back for the third year because we barely even know who you are. I didn't know.
I've had one of those.
Yeah, so I was like, that's fine. I'll just stay in Australia then. And I did that I came home briefly, then I went straight back. Just came home just long enough to disappoint my parents. Back to Australia, bummed around for like a year just doing Kung Fu and not having any money and calling my parents every other month, be like, can I have some more money, please? I tried to get a few jobs, but I've told this story a few times. I think it's fairly accurate. I don't think I've embellished anything. We got beaten up badly by some islanders, some like Tongans or something. And that was a bit of a wake-up call that what we were doing maybe wasn't as amazing as we led to believe. And we started like the guy that I was living with had the keys to the academy. He was like the main instructor. We would go in there, anytime we wanted, late at night, whatever, and train. And we would like do late night sessions with gloves on, try and beat each other up and try and figure out like, how is this like ancient Kung Fu thing going to actually work? And it quickly like broke down, just winging punches at each other and landing and being like, shit. Like, then at the same time, a friend of ours lent us some K1 videos. K1's like the supreme striking art, basically. And also it was a massive spectacle. Like I think K1 at one point might have been bigger than Pride. It was just huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
Japan was obsessed with it. It was like the most incredible spectacle. Enjoyed watching all those. And they ran out of K1 videos. What else you got? Pride. And then I was like, holy shit, like this is real fighting, and everyone knew jiu-jitsu. So I was like, yeah, I think I should do some jiu-jitsu. And that was, yeah.
So you were still in Australia at this point?
Yeah, it was embarrassingly, that was 2004. So I've been training a really long time. Yeah.
And did you started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Australia?
Yeah. It was a little, it was called Pump House Gym. It was like an actual gym.
Yeah.
And the owner was a purple belt. And then like 3 nights a week, we would drag mats out into the kind of workout area and train. And it was so like old school, so Australian. Summer was no gi, winter was gi, and Fridays were no rules. So, it'd be like showing you how to knee people and, elbows. And it was just really fun.
Because, Jiu-Jitsu in Australia must have been very young in 2004. Because I think I think I'm pretty safe in saying that that the sport is sort of even more in its infancy in Australia as it is in the UK.
Probably, although that's changing now, I think.
Well, of course, they had this incredible, they've had this incredible success coming out of Australia in the last couple of years with Lachlan and Craig and all of the other killers out there. But I'm just thinking sort of for number of black belts.
Oh yeah, it was tiny. There was one Brazilian that I knew in Sydney. That I was part of Roots Jiu Jitsu, which was run by Paulo Guimarães. Amazingly, I remembered his name. And he was like a surfer, Brazilian guy, notoriously tough, I think, for training. I never even trained with him. I just trained with the guys in Pump House. His name was Brad. He was tiny, but he was an absolute badass. But it was definitely small scale. There was a UFC fighter. Do you remember him? Insane Australian man.
Elvis Sinisic?
No. I can't remember his name. He busted my neck. I never recovered from it.
Really?
Yeah, he did that. You know that mount that when you attack, when someone's turtled and you do a back, you flip over and you bring them with you. He didn't tell me what he was doing. And
he was sparring with you?
I think he said, "Oh, come over here." He was going to show. He just turned up one night to show us the technique. So get on your hands and knees. Got my hand. He just like rolled over top of me, and my neck went. And I was like, "Shit." Yes, it still hurts. But yeah, it was just a funny old scene back then, 2004.
So then, how did you sort of? How long were you in Australia for?
I think it was only 2 years. Yeah, we planned to stay long term, but there was like something bad happened. My friend passed away, and it became very the atmosphere for us changed. So we came back to the UK briefly because I had a girlfriend at the time who's now my wife. Came back to the UK, didn't really feel it, after living in Sydney, which is such an incredible city, and then went to Japan and lived in Japan for 4 years. First thing I did when I got there is find a gym, a jiu-jitsu gym. I wanted to do MMA, but I did a few sessions and it was just brutal. Japan, it has an incredibly well-established network of jiu-jitsu and MMA places. Pariestra is one of the main ones. Every city in Japan has multiple jiu-jitsu and grappling gyms. There's events every weekend, even like, when was I in Japan? Maybe 12, 13 years ago, something like that. It was very well established. So even you'd walk into like a tiny little gym and there'd be 20 semi-pro MMA guys there.
Even back
then, yeah. It was,
really?
Shuto is like a national thing in Japan, basically, and it's so well done. You've got like all the different classes of amateur Shuto, different rounds, and the beginning classes where all padding everywhere, all the way up to you get your professional license, then you can fight on pro shows. But it's there. It's like a sport, like any other sport. Like some people play Sunday football or whatever. That's MMA or there. So I was just getting battered in all the classes. My legs were getting kicked to shit. My nose got broken. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And just stuck with jiu-jitsu. And that's it.
And what was jiu-jitsu like back in... So we're talking 2006?
Yeah,
7?
Probably something. I'm terrible with dates.
What was the jiu-jitsu scene like out there?
It was already quite well established because you had a few people like Enson Inoue, Yuki Nakai, a few others that had made a scene out there.
Because I guess like Yuki was sort of the godfather of jiu-jitsu, of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in Japan.
I guess so.
Because I know that sort of, for those who don't know who Yuki Nakai is, then there's an incredible, if you have not watched the documentary, there's an incredible, sort of the quintessential documentary about jiu-jitsu called Choke, which is about Rickson Gracie, and he fights in the, I can't remember what year it is. Yeah, maybe
90. Was it 90? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 94 and 95 were the 2 years. Very, we're talking just after the establishment of the UFC, where MMA was already, or Vale Tudo was much bigger in Japan. And he fought against this judo legend. Was he was a big name in judo at the time, or he was a Yuki Nakai?
Yeah, he was a Kosen Judo, which is the one that's close to modern jiu-jitsu, like lots of groundwork. Yeah. And
he, because I remember it was a crazy scenario that he found himself in. He fought against, was it Gerard Godot, the big French kickboxer, I want to say?
Yeah, I think so.
feeling a little bit rusty on my MMA history. I shouldn't be, but he had a crazy fight with him, and he was gouging his eyes, and I know he kind of destroyed his eyes, and I think he went blind in one of them, didn't he?
Yeah, his sight is permanently damaged in one eye.
Yeah, and Hickson. Then he won the fight, got the submission, and then in the final was fighting Hickson, and Hickson decided that he wasn't going to punch him in his bad eye. That's and that was sort of the honourable route that he took, and then he sort of dismantled him on the ground. And then Yuki Nakai sort of decided, I need to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he became, I believe, the first Japanese, Brazilian, like Gracie lineage.
I've actually, I've interviewed him, but it's been a while since I've, dredged up this information.
I'm glad it's not just me who's rusty on the history.
No, he came from that judo back. I think he might have done some wrestling. I can't remember, but it was definitely judo. And he, because I said to him, "Oh, so you got beaten by Hickson, and then you wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, yeah?" And he was like, "No. I wanted to beat jiu-jitsu guys." He was like, "That was he was like, shit, I need to know how to do this." So it wasn't like he joined jiu-jitsu. It was like, I want to get better at grappling and beat these guys, I think, if I remember correctly. But the story with him is he would go to the Pan Ams in America and do really well because he's like a very, very good grappler. And then I think the federation was giving him his belts. Like, right, next year, you can't be a white belt anymore. Here's this. And then a few years later, it's all right, you need a brown belt now. And then now you need a black belt.
Wow. So
he kind of graded under the federation, I think. And he's got hundreds of gyms around.
Yeah. Because we were, I was lucky enough to meet him when we did Quintet. He was like he was the rules, head referee. That was a bizarre situation.
Oh yeah.
We'll get back onto that at some point. So you're out in Japan training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and did you have any history? Because of course, as long as I've known you, you have been. It was after you came back from Japan, and you were like, you're the Japan guy, right? Like you, like a lot of your.
Yes, I'm the weeb.
Yeah, a lot of your sort of influence in a lot of the branding that you do as well comes from that Japanese style. But of course, what were you like before that? Were you sort of influenced, or were you, did you have any desire to go to Japan before you actually went there?
No, not really. I was really into Kung Fu. So I thought if I was going to go anywhere, it'd be China.
Yeah.
But in the end, Japan was a very formative experience for me. It was like it had a really huge impact on me. That's why I am a bit of a Japanophile, I suppose. But
which is understandable.
Yeah, it's just an amazing country.
You spent 4 years there, and for anyone who's not gone there, I've had the privilege of going there. Spent a couple of weeks there a few years ago. When you go that far away from the Western world, the influences of the West really
it's very different.
It's very, very different.
It's I learned a lot being there. They do things very differently. It's a nice country. It's a really nice country, and they have such a strong. They're so in touch with their own culture and their own history. It's like the positives and the negatives of having a country that's 99.9% ethnic Japanese. It's very homogenous. In terms of like they don't have much ethnic diversity, which is you can say is a negative thing, but the trade-off is they've got this incredibly strong culture and attachment to their own history that it can't fail to have an impact on you when you're there, unless you're some sort of callous, ignorant person.
Yeah. And so you trained out there for 4 years.
Yeah, I got my purple belt just before I left,
and then you came back to the UK.
Yep.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it was just felt like time to leave. I miss it. I still miss it now. Like in an alternate reality, I'd still be there, but career prospects were fairly limited, and it's a great place to live. But as I was saying about the ethnic Japanese thing, like you'd always stick out. Doesn't matter how many years you stayed there or how well you tried to learn the language and the customs. You just look different, and your kids look different. So. So made the decision to come back. Purple belt was still fairly rare back then.
Yeah, so you moved straight back down to the south?
Yep.
And started training jiu-jitsu over here?
I couldn't afford to train jiu-jitsu. I had like absolutely no money. I did judo just because it was like too good to go.
Yeah.
And then I used to go every now and then to Bulldog Gym, where Alex D'Souza was teaching and Jeff Lawson was training. And they had a few really good guys there that would kick my ass. But it was, money was that much of an issue. Like I just couldn't afford it.
Wow.
And I ended up, it was quite far away from my house as well. So I ended up renting a leisure center like room and just doing like open mat or kind of teaching classes, but I just wanted to keep training and I didn't want to keep driving miles away and paying loads of money for it. So invited a bunch of people down. It ended up being quite a good little group. Jeff was there, another guy called Magic, who's now one of Jeff's black belts. And it was pretty good training for a while.
And what did you feel like the biggest difference was between the training that you'd had for the last 4 years in Japan versus the training that you were sort of into, in the very still relatively early days of UK Jiu-Jitsu?
Lots of differences. I was really skinny at that point. I was like 67 kilos because life in Japan was fairly hectic and the diet was pretty decent, and I was cycling I meant to mention, like, I really put the hours in when I was in Japan. Like, I would work from early morning till late night, and then sometimes it would take me 2 hours to get across town to go to the gym. And then I would finish training at like 11:30, and go home and rinse and repeat. Like, I really worked really hard in Japan, and I was like skinny as anything. And then when I came back, everyone was like a fucking giant.
I guess there's one difference is that the people do tend to be a bit smaller in Japan.
No, I think that's still accurate. Like nowadays, you get some absolute beefcakes in Japan and really strong.
There's also I remember the two sumo guys who came to watch Quintet. They were like big 200 kilo guys.
Yeah. No, lots of people are very strong, physically strong as well. They've got the judo background they've been doing for ages, and just very strong people. But the average training partner was just so much bigger than I was used to. It was different. Like, everything was different. I was going to a gym with like 20 or 30 people and being taught by a black belt every time. And then when I came back to the UK, it was just me putting some mats out with a few people. So it was very different. Yeah. So what next then?
Well, so I guess the next part is kind of because what year did you start Scramble?
2009.
So that couldn't have been much more time after you got back from Japan.
No, so I wanted to be a kind of writer, journalist around MMA, or even like maybe a videographer.
Yeah.
I felt like the scene in Japan had a lot to offer people in like the West. I thought it was really interesting and it was really well developed compared to what we had. And I remember before I left Japan, I had this day trip to Tokyo. It was like one of the best days of my life. I hunted down the guy that ran these magazines. They were Jiu-Jitsu magazines. It was like, that's how big it was. You could go into a bookshop and there'd be 4 different Jiu-Jitsu magazines with DVDs on the front.
Wow.
It was huge. And I asked him if I could import them to the UK, and he was like, yeah, of course. So then he took me around Tokyo, and I met like gym owners and other writers, and it was just really cool. And so I sort of brought those connections with me when I went to England, and I thought I can import this stuff. I'm trying to remember the exact order. It was very hard to find a job because there was a recession on. I was writing a little bit. I wrote for Fighters Only magazine and a couple of other, like Fighting Fit, which was all right, but it was barely paying the bills. It was really hard to rent a place because they were like, well, where do you work? And I'm like, I had to sort of beg, steal and borrow to get an apartment, a flat. Started importing stuff like Reversal, Art Junkie and those magazines, and a few sales here and there. But basically then just decided because I wasn't getting good margins. Importing stuff from Japan is really expensive. It's really expensive in the first place to buy it. And I was making no money. I thought I'll just kind of do a similar style myself, and did a few months of that, maybe 6 months. And then I was meeting up with Ben, who was my schoolmate. And I think we were just chatting about it, and we both saw potential in it. So he came on board, and then since then it's been like a partnership. Just started real small and organic, and we just grew it bit by bit.
Yeah. So Scramble's now become definitely one of the biggest brands in the UK, definitely. One of the biggest brands in Europe, and actually a really well-established brand worldwide. I think, one of the reasons that it is because it is kind of unique in the products that it sells and in the style that it sells in, which means that you can see it on people all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Did you envisage that happening from when you started it? Was that the plan all along for you to make this international jiu-jitsu based or lifestyle brand?
I think it's really weird looking back on it now, because we did things that, are really dumb on paper, like quit well-paying jobs to do this, but we must have known that it was going to work. That's one of the things that I suppose sort of carries you through in the beginning. You just have to have an unshakable sort of confidence that what you're doing is the right thing, not a kind of arrogant, there's a fine line between, I don't know how to say it, like modern, like Instagram generation. I'm an influencer. I've only got 300 followers, but I'm an influencer. Or actually just knowing, no, this is going to work. I'm going to work really hard. It's a fake it till you make it, but with the work as well,
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that we have nowadays, is that this idea of being an influencer is the worst thing ever.
Yeah, it's
when people refer to me as an influencer, I slap them around the face because I hate the term. I think like influencer is what you call someone when they actually have no talent, and the only talent that they have is that they have lots of followers on social media. It's just like such a bizarre thing that when when you started Scramble, however many years ago, it didn't even exist. It wasn't a thing.
No.
And yeah, we're in a really weird time now where professional.
You just watch Logan Paul box, the greatest box of our generation. It's utterly ridiculous.
It is mad. There's lots of things happening now, especially with social media, where you're like, okay, we are almost certainly in a simulation now, because nothing makes sense.
The things that make me think we're in a simulation, I now get fed ads. Have you seen the ads on YouTube for like Clash of Castles or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's just so surreal. It's like two terrible actors reading off a script that wasn't written by a native speaker. I'm just like, what is happening? Is this working? Is anybody buying this? Like, what planet?
It's just a numbers game, isn't it?
It's bizarre.
The best one that I saw one the other day, which was one of the greatest headlines that I've ever seen in my life, which was Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO, sent clippings of his beard to Azealia Banks in order to make an amulet to protect him from ISIS. That was a real.
That's where we are now.
I like 100% the next time I get a beard trim, I'm going to send it to Azealia Banks, because I want an amulet
protection
from ISIS.
Yeah. Maybe it's already working. I don't see ISIS anywhere.
Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, without getting too much off topic here, we live in a weird time where you do have stuff like influencers and stuff like that, and
we had to have confidence, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do anything properly.
Yeah, but that confidence needs to be in actually doing something.
Yes. Yeah, you have to put work in behind it. I guess there was just a massive gap in the market for like clean, good quality products. Believe it or not, there was, it was just ugly. We've spoken about this many times.
Yeah,
everything was pit bulls and
Yeah, well, that's it. That I guess when you start talking about aesthetics in jiu-jitsu and MMA, people look at the variety that we have in the market now and sort of the influences of a worldwide market and people becoming more sort of, sophisticated in their designs. But back in the day, it was so bizarre how all jiu-jitsu and MMA clothing looked. It was, like you said, it was like all out of Brazil, and like the Brazilian culture is about pit bulls and, big like cartoon
barbed wire,
Superman on the front of T-shirts, and barbed wire and tap out and stuff like that. So it is actually, when you really think about it, the change in the look of martial arts, MMA and jiu-jitsu apparel has changed so much in the last 15 years. Yeah,
it really has. Now would be very hard to start Scramble. Like, we have some really strong competitors that everything's super clean and super well done. So very different now. But back then, it felt like, yeah, we can do this. There's nobody else doing this. Yeah.
And a question I've never asked you, which is, how'd you get the name? How'd you come up with Scramble? Because you must have thought, you know, it's such an ambiguous name anyway. Yeah. There must have been a lot of other forerunners in that competition.
The only one that I can remember is Umi, I think, which means ocean. I don't know why. That's the only other one I can remember. But I wrote down all the things that happen in a jiu-jitsu, in a sparring match.
Yeah.
And just ended on scramble. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, and I like the idea of the scramble because if you're sparring with somebody and the scramble is the moment where, like, I think we used to have it on the website. It's whoever wants it more is going to get it. So it's like in between positions. You know, you're like tired, but you're straining. They're tired, they're straining. That's the scramble. And if you win that, you know, you get the position and you can rest and they're fucked, you know.
Because I couldn't imagine Scramble being called anything else. But maybe that's one of the things with branding, right?
Yeah.
When a brand is established, you couldn't imagine it being called anything else.
I read a good thing. It said, like Apple has... What does the word Apple have to do with computers? Absolutely
That's very true.
Nothing. Yeah, it's just a brand name.
Would it be a $1 trillion company if it was called Pear?
Yeah, or like Transistor.
So, did you have any experience running a brand or a sort of entrepreneurial endeavor prior to starting Scramble?
Nope. We've learned everything along the way. It literally started with screen print some T-shirts, put them on a website, write the address by hand, take them to the post office.
And now, you know, you have Scramble stores in multiple different countries. You know, I know you have Scramble in Japan. I think you have it in
Korea.
You have
Poland,
it in Canada.
Ireland, Canada.
So let's go through that journey a little bit.
What, becoming like a real company?
Yeah, I just sort of, it's really interesting. I think it's one of the things where people don't see all of the things that happen behind the scenes with their, you know, with some brands that people are really familiar with. And I think Scramble is such an interesting one because, you know, I knew of Scramble pretty early in your, you know, I think that you sponsored me for the first time. I think you had 2 or 3 T-shirts
Probably.
out.
Yeah.
Like really, like it wasn't a lot. I was sponsored by Faishihu at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no conflict of interest because you only had 2 T-shirts, and
I remember
Faishihu
Ollie
didn't have
Geddes
T-shirts.
complaining. He was like, "Matt, you need to make more T-shirts because I'm turning up at competitions and Dan's got the same T-shirt."
I still remember that one of the first T-shirts I ever had for Scramble, the mixed martial art one.
Yeah, that was
And it was the most comfortable T-shirt.
It was a decent T-shirt.
It was the most comfortable T-shirt I've ever owned to this day.
Yeah.
And all of my favorite T-shirts throughout history have been the ones that have been lost, and all the ones that I don't really care about. Which kind of makes sense because you don't wear the ones you don't care about and you wear the ones that you like too much.
There's a funny story about those T-shirts. So I had those designs and I was talking to T-shirt printers in the UK and they were going to charge like 10 or 12 quid or something per T-shirt.
Wow.
Because I only wanted like 20 or something. And then I started looking online. I went to Alibaba and I found a bunch of T-shirts. And China was like, yeah, we'll do them for, you know, 3 quid or something. And I was like, damn. But you have to buy 1,000. Can I sell 1,000? I was like, yeah, we can do it. So we had like...
Thousands of a lot of T-shirts.
Thousands of T-shirts. It was a terrible... In my head, I was going, I'll sell 1 T-shirt a day. But, and it shows you how inexperienced we were. We arranged the shipping and I got a message said, yeah, the T-shirts are here. I was like, where? They're like, they're at Felixstowe. I was like, what do you mean? Oh, well, that's where the boat stops. What do you mean they're at Felixstowe? Well, you have to go and get them. What? Like, I've, had no idea about how international logistics worked. I'd paid sea freight to get them to the UK.
not to your front door.
Not to my house. So, yeah. We just learn everything along the way. Yeah. Go on. No, I was going to say a lot of the structural stuff is down to Ben. Ben's quite good with that stuff. We used to do everything together. You know, we'd have to work on every single thing from the bottom to the top of the business. But Ben's got a good business brain, and I just try and focus on the design and other aspects now.
So what are some of the other, that's obviously like a little mistake where you end up with 1,000 T-shirts, not where you want them to be. What are some of the other big mistakes or sort of lessons that you've learned about business or about brands and companies throughout the history of Scramble specifically?
I mean, I think luckily we haven't made too many drastic mistakes. That's a good question. You have to, if you want to do it properly, you have to, for example, you have to really test. If you're talking about Scramble specifically, samples have to be tested thoroughly until you've been in. If you know the factory for years, you can trust them. But if not, everything's got to be tested thoroughly. You've got to know how each size fits. For years, like I only focused on the A2 gi because I was A2, so the A2 fit me like a glove. And then everything else was like, oh yeah, just do it. Well, yeah, whatever you want, But gradually we've expanded the range. We know a lot about all the sizes now and how to develop products. I've said it before, but it's really easy to start a brand. You can do it in a day. You register the company, you get a logo, you print some stuff. Easy. Website, easy. It's all done for you. But it's difficult to do it properly and to keep it going. Loads of it is just hard work. Like, even releasing a product is days and days and days of work. Like, it's got to be put on the website. It needs all the descriptions, it needs all the photos, all the marketing material, all the wholesale details. You've got to let everybody know. It's just weeks of work going to like a single product. So, yeah, I think you just can't skimp on any of the details because it'll suffer in the end if you don't do it properly.
And speaking about that, I think jiu-jitsu clothing brands are something where you see so many new brands popping up all the time, and you kind of always have. Is that something that is unique to jiu-jitsu or MMA, or is that something that just happens in general?
I think there's loads of stuff unique to our sport. Like, not everybody in Scramble trains, and they find it hilarious that people take pictures of themselves after every training session. He's done a great session.
Yeah.
Like, imagine people playing football, or any other sport, cricket.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's like, why do you...
I don't take pictures of myself ever when I train, but...
And then why does everybody have to start a brand,
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it?
There isn't like 4,000 cricket brands run out of somebody's bedroom or, It's a funny old sport, yeah.
Do you have any idea why so many people start their own jiu-jitsu clothing brand?
No idea. It's just bizarre. The whole sport is bizarre.
It is. It's just like... Yeah, and I guess you could say the same about opening gyms and their own clubs as well. You see lots of people teaching their own clubs, but you wouldn't see people who play five-a-side football starting their own football club.
No, it's just bizarre. I don't know why it's like that. Perhaps it's a very empowering sport, and so you feel like, yeah, I can do that.
Maybe, or maybe that it's such a new sport. There's no...
It still feels like there's a lot of... Yeah.
Well, maybe that it still feels like there's a lot of room to grow and to, there's a lot of space in the market, but maybe also that there's no structure of, no, you don't open a gym, you actually... Could you imagine how fewer gyms there would be if you had to be a second degree black belt to open a gym?
Yeah.
Just put in a specific requirement before you could open a gym, it would be very, very different. But then you think actually that would have, how many people open gyms as blues and purple belts back in the day
and go on to do great things.
My instructor was a blue belt when I started training with him, and I definitely think that. And then it makes you wonder, will it change in 50 years time?
Yeah, I think it must. I think it must level out at some point, but I don't know.
But that's it's an interesting question to ask, and why the hell not? Let's chat about it now, because you're someone who, and obviously we've got loads of things to talk about. I want to talk about Polaris and how you started that, and everything that's come from that as well. But you're someone who is deeply connected into martial arts, and especially the jiu-jitsu in the UK and worldwide, be it through Polaris, be it through Scramble, be it through all the other ventures that you've done and the experience that you've had in it. What do you see the next 10 years, 20, 30, 50? How do you see the future of jiu-jitsu in the UK looking? Because people have asked me this question a lot, and when someone asks you a question, you come at it from your own perspective. So when someone asks it to me, they're coming as a competitor, as an instructor, but you have a very different perspective as someone who is really has a view of jiu-jitsu very different to how almost everyone else who does jiu-jitsu will have it.
I think it's going to grow a lot. I think England or the UK is getting stronger and stronger on the international scene. We have a lot of good practitioners and people are getting better, especially in the no-gi. That's really picking up pace. I think in general, it still has, jiu-jitsu is still much smaller in comparison to the other martial arts, like karate and judo. There's still an order of magnitude more people doing that.
I don't know.
No, it is.
Do you? Okay.
Well,
but like, so for example, like the British Open had like a couple of thousand entrants a few years ago.
Yeah. So it has maybe more active competitors for sure. But in
you think that jiu-jitsu has?
I think so, yeah. But in terms of practitioners, I think the other ones still have them beat. As an example, one of the wholesalers we work with does traditional martial arts uniforms and jiu-jitsu and MMA. And his jiu-jitsu and MMA warehouse is this big, and his traditional martial arts uniforms warehouse is this big. So it's still huge.
I'd love to get numbers on that because, I have no doubt that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is expanding it's, I don't even know if, I can only assume that judo and traditional martial arts are shrinking and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and MMA is increasing. The question is, at what stage of that, shrink and expansion are we at?
It would be interesting to get actual figures because when I was doing Kung Fu, I was doing Wing Chun, we all thought this is the best martial art ever. This is the fastest growing martial art in the world. Everyone's doing it. And then I left that. I was like, actually, no. And now in jiu-jitsu is the fastest growing martial art. It's going to be amazing.
It's the problem with the echo chamber, isn't it? When you're in a sport, and I always say that, I always preface a lot of what I say. People need to understand that my perspective comes from someone who has been doing jiu-jitsu for 15 years and all my friends do jiu-jitsu and everyone that I follow does jiu-jitsu. So I feel like jiu-jitsu is the biggest sport in the world. Yeah. But obviously I know that when I'm conscious about it and aware about it, I know that it of course isn't.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I think it's going to, at the very least, it will continue that steady growth that it's on now. It's insane. My coach, Jeff Lawson, just gave out like 4 black belts the other day, and he's going to give another 2 out or 3. It's insane. When I came here, there was 1 black belt, which was Alex, and in this whole area. And now I can go to training on a Tuesday night, and I'll have like 5 black belts to choose from. That's crazy. I think that's naturally going to grow it. I think it can be a lot bigger. I think Polaris could potentially be an important thing for that. Right now we are on UFC Fight Pass, which is good. It's amazing, don't get me wrong. But there's a barrier between like average Joe watching Polaris,
Well, they already have to be...
Yeah.
They already have to be a fight sport fan.
Yes. To
even be sort of on the inside of that paywall.
Yeah. And there's also things like the average sort of jiu-jitsu match is probably not exciting for somebody that doesn't know jiu-jitsu. But I don't know. I don't know if it's similar to when we first started Scramble and we just knew this is going to be a success. People tell me all the time, professional jiu-jitsu will never be mainstream because of this. Now, no. Like you can have, there's furry conventions with 40,000 people in a room, There's no reason why you can't make 2 people grappling have mass appeal. There's no reason not to. You just got to find the right formula and the right distribution platform.
By the sounds of it, you put them in furries.
Put them in furry costumes. Yeah. Grease up the floor.
I'm kind of that same thought. I was speaking about this on a podcast, someone else's podcast a few days ago, actually, and spoke a lot about Polaris and what you guys are trying to do. And, this question about jiu-jitsu's popularity worldwide, but, even if we're specifically talking about in the UK, about how it's limited, I think that the limit is to do with the fact that very few people watch jiu-jitsu who don't participate in the sport.
Yeah.
And that gives such a, imagine how many fewer fans of football there would be if everyone at the
Had to
FA
play.
Cup final was, play, even if it was Sunday League, and obviously lots of people do play football, but it's still a much, much smaller percentage than the people who actually go and watch. Do you, and I do feel, and when I'm asked this question, and when I was asked this question recently, and I spoke about this, my kind of answer was, it's shows such as Polaris that are going to be doing that, and not even specifically Polaris, but shows that are doing stuff like the team events. I feel like the team events are one of the best ways of, I feel like Quintet showed that I've never ever had someone watch me compete before who doesn't do jiu-jitsu and be able to follow along, because you have this narrative that is not connected to the technical aspects of the match.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when we can talk about that in more detail, but when me and Ben went and watched that Quintet 1 with Team Polaris, it was just shivers down the spine, like constantly. We were like, oh my God, this is incredible.
But it was
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the team thing that instantly made a different feeling to just individual matches. And the last thing we ever wanted to do was rip Quintet off, because we respect them and they invited us to the show many times. So we took a long time before we did anything, even touching the team format. And I watched tons of documentaries about sports, team sports. Or Netflix put out some really good stuff over the last few years, like Last Chance U and stuff like that. And just realizing what a massive part of just the worldwide culture team sports is. And it is a proxy for war. You agree, it's two teams, often two nations. You agree the rules, and then you go to war within those rules. And that is so much more exciting than this guy versus that guy. I also think that would be the format to introduce it to a wider audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think for multiple reasons. And yeah, I think turning a individual sport into a team sport, it does bring something very different to the table in terms of just the ability to I think that's what it is. The ability to see the bigger picture of what's happening in an event more than just the individuals of two competing against each other. So do you feel like the future of grappling, professional grappling, is going to be team-based?
At the moment, yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I think that's the only way to bridge the barrier between, because you can have two guys go out and just have an absolute stinker. Doesn't matter if they are the most decorated guys on the planet.
It styles make matches, right?
Always happens. There's very few people in the entire grappling universe that you can rely on to consistently be exciting. There's literally like 5. Because, and it's not a bad thing. It's just first of all, that the time will go like that for the competitors.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to look stupid. So people naturally become less cautious unless you're a lunatic, But the team thing instantly adds, well, in particular our format, it's a short round, so you can go ham. You've got 7 other team members screaming for you to do something, so that we don't have to do it for you. You're being egged on by the team. Humans are naturally tribal, so you can put someone together in a group for 5 minutes and they'll feel affinity with that group. Right? You're all the brown hairs and you're the red hairs, whatever. It's just, yes, it's a way to bridge the gap, I think. Yeah. So even if I've had a few people come around and watch Polaris and they get into the team ones, even if they've never done jiu-jitsu.
And we'll talk Polaris and we'll work backwards. We'll continue talking about the teams and we'll start talking about how you got into that initially a little bit later on. But because of course, going back to Quintet, you were originally going to be basically running a Quintet during a Polaris, because I remember a Quintet 3, they announced at the end of that it would be in the UK, and that never came to fruition. And I remember thinking that's like the maddest thing ever, and it won't work. And thankfully it didn't come into fruition. But you were going to run a literal, with quintet rules as a quintet in Polaris, or as the prelims or something like that.
No, yeah, we were going to. Yeah, it was going to be quintet Polaris or something. Polaris quintet. Yeah.
And then, at what point did you decide that? No, we're going to change. We're going to write our own team format.
Well, we were really close with quintet right from the beginning. One of the more surreal experiences in my life, of which there have been quite a few, was an email from Sakuraba's team going, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this sports event. Can you come to Tokyo and give us some advice?" I was like, "What?" And then suddenly I was in a office with the dude that was one of the producers of Pride.
Yeah.
And they're going, "So what's it, grappling contest? And what do you think about the name?" And I was like, "Ugh, this is weird."
Well, it's similar to the message that I got from you saying, "Do you want to compete in a team grappling event with Sakuraba?"
I should fight Sakuraba, it's fine.
Never in a million years did I think I'd actually fight him.
But we're very close. And we believed in their format, and but they are so specific about the requirements. Like, you have to basically, without getting into it too much, it was going to be just completely impractical. We had to fly their whole team over so that everything could be done to their exact specifications, which is their prerogative because it's their invention. Yeah. And I think it just became a logistical nightmare. But we left a long enough period of time, and people, I've seen so many social media, just copying quintet. Not at all. It's a team event.
There are events that have copied
They're
quintet.
literally called quintet, like quintet something.
Yeah.
But we said, right, team grappling, awesome. What can we do that is different? That's it, really. How can we do that without ripping them off? Yeah. So we came up, there's loads of stuff in there that's different. Yeah.
And so you actually weren't thinking, when you watched, you and Ben were mat side for Quintet 1, you didn't watch that and go, we need to make our own version. It was only through them, you having this discussion about running the event for them where you thought, actually, let's do our own.
No, I think as soon as we saw it, we were like,
we've got to do something like this.
We've got to do that one day. Yeah. And then we were very friendly with them. So, it was our pleasure, to host them in the UK. That's how that, and then that didn't work out. And in the back of our minds, we were thinking, oh shit, we've got to do this team thing.
So the rule set, for those who don't know, you've been living under a rock, but for those who don't know, the rule set for Polaris is, for Polaris squads, is teams of 8, 4 people under 75 kilos, 4 people under 95 kilos day before weigh-ins. And everyone competes with everyone, and it's 5-minute rounds. There's 1 point for a submission and 3 points for a submission if a smaller person, so under 75, taps an over 95, which I don't believe has happened, under 95, which I don't believe has happened yet.
Nope.
And winner stays on.
5-minute rounds.
2 40-minute rounds. So you just
we
keep on going.
That to an hour.
2 1-hour rounds.
Yeah. 40 minutes goes like that.
Wow, okay. So it's going to be 2 hours of grappling.
Yeah.
Now, what I like specifically about it is the pacing. The pacing of an hour of continuous grappling. That's going to be interesting because the 40 minutes was almost exactly
5 times, whatever, yeah.
Everyone would run through once. So now
you'll definitely have to fight more than once.
Well, you'll definitely have to fight.
Well, not definitely.
No, you'll definitely have to fight more than. Well, you'll almost certainly have to fight more than once each round.
Yeah, I mean,
most people have to fight more than once each round.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
And that was the whole point of the format.
Yeah.
So we realized, and those 40 minutes went quick. So we realized that what would be the point of having winner stays on and keep rotating the team if the time didn't allow people to go on more than once? Yeah.
So how many different iterations of rules did you come up with? Give us some examples of what we almost could have seen. And then I'll tell you whether we need to do that because it sounds cool.
Well, me and Ben were meeting for coffee and Polaris rule discussions or whatever every week for months and months and months. And we were just going round and round and round. And then relaying it back to Gareth and Lee, and they were giving their input. We had a wild card idea where it would literally be you'd draw the wild card and they would be able to swap the fighter who's on, stuff like that.
Okay.
We had a timeout idea where
you could do a timeout during a match.
If contact was disengaged, you could call a timeout. So,
okay.
and the match would stop, which I still quite like.
Yeah.
Because it would, let's say, hang on, let me get my head around this scenario. Let's say you're grappling Josh Barnett or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're completely fucked because he's Josh Barnett and you're knackered and you've already choked 3 Japanese people to death. And you need to disengage because you need a timeout. So there'll be, even if Josh is stalling, he's be grabbing onto you.
He knows that I want a timeout.
You'll be trying to pull your arms free. It'll be grabbing a leg. And as soon as you break, timeout. I quite like that idea.
And then you get a timeout. It would be a break or you
swap out the guy. So quickly swap down out, put someone else in. But
wow.
Yeah, we've been all the way around the houses, different team sizes,
Yeah, because 8 is a big team.
It's a big team, yeah. The idea was to turn it more like a ball sport.
Yeah.
Football, rugby, whatever. Big team.
Yeah.
People get behind the team. Lots of different personalities. Yeah.
And do you intend on, you've already kind of answered that question, which is you've changed the time limit.
Yeah.
Are you intending or you are thinking about or considering making bigger adjustments to the rules, such as, because you have a timeout system, right?
Yeah.
2 timeouts each round, but it has to be in between fights.
Yeah.
And the timeout just allows you to switch out one of the competitors.
Or have a rest if you're getting battered.
Keep him active.
Yeah.
How long's the rest?
2 minutes.
It's not much of a rest.
No, but it feels long.
Okay.
Well, you've commentated,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not much of a rest.
Yeah. Because I think every time it's been used to switch out, which makes sense.
Yeah.
To switch out a competitor.
And that was specifically from American sports like basketball and NFL and stuff like that. The tension,
Yeah.
The tension. Okay, there's 4 minutes left. You're down by 2 points. Coach has scored a timeout. Everything pauses and then there's like a team talk, and it's just so tense. They go, right, we've got 4 minutes to make this work,
And so are we likely to see any bigger adjustments to rules? Are we likely to ever see a timeout that can be done in the middle of a match?
I don't know. Probably not yet. We've only done it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We want to try this out a few times and get a feel for it as a normal show. Yeah.
Because Quintet has run... They haven't run any full events for a while, but they've still been running their fight nights, haven't they? Mm-hmm. So they still run, probably
kind of domestic
10 events or something.
Yeah.
Have they made any changes to any of the rules?
Not as far as I know. They've done a few. Actually, when I met with Sakuraba, he was telling me about this other format he had where, like an Ironman, you have to win 3 matches in a row.
Okay.
So, and there would only be like 3 or 4 people. So
wait, so you win the round or you win the event by winning 3 in a row?
Yeah.
So let's keep on going until someone wins 3 in a row.
Me, you, someone else.
Yeah.
We'll compete. You beat me.
Ah.
So then you'll compete with this guy. You beat him. Then you have to beat me one more time. Then you've won. Or if you don't, then it goes back. Now I win. Okay, now I've got to beat this guy. Then I beat him. He's got all kinds of crazy ideas. Yeah.
So did Sakuraba come up with the concept of quintet?
Yeah.
Like 100%.
He said it's a judo thing. So there would be judo meets where they would have like whatever. They go to the school and you'd bring a lightweight, a medium weight, a heavyweight, this guy, and the 2 teams would fight. And, this guy would fight this guy. If he wins, he stays on. So he kind of adapted it, I think, from some college judo thing that goes on in Japan.
Interesting. And so yeah, I do think that the team events are going to be the future, or at least will be the vehicle that jiu-jitsu's used to break through, if it's even possible. I don't know if it is. I like to optimistically.
Yeah, you have to think that.
Yeah, and I think I think that it is, be it optimistic or not. And I do think that would be the strongest vehicle for sort of getting people into the sport.
You need personalities as well. So I now have basically tuned out of MMA because I was just completely overwhelmed by the amount of matches and the amount of people on there. I just watch the big fights because I need to know something about the person. There needs to be a story. I don't actually care that much about 2 guys smashing each other in the face. I want to know like this person's life story versus this person's life story. You know, that's why we put a lot of effort into the pre-event stuff, because if you just plonk an event on, I couldn't care less about the, you know.
Well, I guess if you just stick an event on, then you have to rely purely on it being an incredible event, right?
Yes.
So like, for example, some of the lesser known people on the first quintet, but it made for a really good show. Obviously, there were some really big names in there. But even the people who weren't such big names.
No, you're right. Yeah. So it either needs some sort of quirk like the format.
Yeah.
Or the athletes have to be insanely exciting.
Yeah.
Or you need big personalities. And ideal is a combination of all three.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what quintet was.
But you actually have an important role. Like if you want jiu-jitsu to be big, it needs people like you that are not afraid to go out and be in front of people and, you know, talk and do things. And, you know, it's important.
Yeah, I feel like that's my personal sort of a life mission, is to help do what I can to make jiu-jitsu bigger. And that's why I like being connected to shows such as Polaris, where I can, you know, and to be honest with you, it's the reason, you know, I get a lot of questions recently about, I'm doing a lot more commentating on Cage Warriors and stuff like that. And they've just run so many shows over the last year. Whether that's like what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm like, no, like I never asked to do Cage Warriors. I was invited, and I just keep on being invited and saying yes. And I just see it as a way of me sort of being a bit of a bridge between people who are pure MMA fans, because I think that's sort of trying to connect to someone who has never watched a MMA fight and never heard of jiu-jitsu and has never heard of martial arts and doesn't care about it. Trying to convert that person into a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fan is hard. Yeah. I still enjoy trying to do it.
Yeah.
I'll still, if I meet someone in the street and get chatting to them about jiu-jitsu, I'll still do my very best to get them interested in the sport. But it's hard. It's a lot easier for MMA to get someone interested in martial arts and then us try and pull them in. And I feel like that is that's what I try and do with my commentary for MMA, is like try and bridge the gap between MMA and pure grappling.
But Joe Rogan's been great for that.
Joe Rogan's like, Joe Rogan has done more for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than I would say any individual ever.
Maybe.
You know, every individual since Carlos Gracie or Helio Gracie.
He's had Gordon, Craig and Danaher on in the last like month.
I would say even completely irrespective of that, to be honest with you. He's championed. But like ignore the commentary for UFC, ignore him getting big jiu-jitsu names on. He has spoken about jiu-jitsu and the benefits of jiu-jitsu to people. You know, there's going to be some people who are going to listen to every single Joe Rogan and be introduced to a Craig Jones or a John Danaher or Gordon Ryan. And there's going to be people who are going to see a name that they don't recognize and not be interested because they're not interested in martial arts and listen to him talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson about jiu-jitsu and then be interested in that way. Yeah, I think Joe Rogan is by far sort of the champion of
you're probably right there.
Bring jiu-jitsu in terms of getting people who have no interest at all in martial arts into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I think he is the man. We should all bow down before the great Joe Rogan. How do we even get onto that?
I need a whiz.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
You just wait 2 seconds.
I'm not going to say no.
Where's your pants? Wait.
Cool, we're back in. Okay. So you know, we've been talking a lot about Polaris. So I want to go back to, when did you first have the idea of running a professional grappling show?
After we went to watch Metamoris. That was
the first Metamoris?
No, it was the ridiculous and incredible privilege that we've had of working with Sakuraba.
When he fought Henzo?
Yes.
Wow.
We made the rash guard for him.
Yes.
And he gave us tickets, front row tickets to Metamoris. You know,
wow.
What is going on? So we flew to LA and sat at the front and watched it. And we were like, fuck, this is amazing. Like, the Metamoris was awesome.
Yeah, the first few events that they did, you know, there's somewhat of a, I don't want to say curse, but there's a pattern with professional grappling events where they come in with an unbelievable budget and
Think
all
they're
the
gonna get rich?
excitement. No one's going to get rich doing professional grappling. There's not enough money in it. And they come in with these big investors, loads of money. They put on a spectacular show.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second show is a little bit smaller. And the third show is a little bit smaller. And the fourth show is really small. And the fifth one's in a gym. You know,
and they're not paying anyone.
Yeah. Well, then, of course, that they had that problem. Which is why I think when you have shows such as Polaris and EBI, shows that have just continued to keep the level of the quality of the events consistent for many years, it's a very different category. You're never going to have that Metamoris 1.
No.
But then if you have that Metamoris 1, you're kind of doomed to fail.
Yeah, I mean, he spent millions, or he spent someone's millions.
Yeah.
But it was, as an event, it was amazing. It was at one at like LA Convention Center or something, and it was like a 2-stage thing. We walked in the door, had like Metamoris like sculptures lit, and there was like a chill out zone and a bar, and we were like, oh my god, there's like videos playing. And then after about an hour, these curtains came up, and you walked in, and it was like bleacher seating with a raised platform. It was so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. We're like, shit, man, maybe this can be a thing now. Maybe pro jiu-jitsu events can be a thing. And that started like ticking over. We were going to do a tournament. I've even got the graphics somewhere on Dropbox. It was going to be called Finishers, I think, even though one ended up being called that in America, with prize money. You know, like I think we had a buy-in and winner money for the winners or something. I can't remember. But it didn't really take off until we spoke with Tatami at the Euros, at the Jiu-Jitsu Championships in Lisbon.
And did you approach Tatami with an idea of you collaborating on an event, or were you just kind of shooting the shit about?
No, we were shooting the shit because we'd never met each other, and we were the two biggest brands in the UK. And we said, we're going to be in Lisbon, let's have dinner together. We got on with them so well.
They're really cool guys.
Probably helped by like 3 bottles of whiskey that we consumed during dinner. Oh. But that was it, yeah. And then we've been buds ever since, really.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so talk me through, because obviously, you know, you kind of spoke about how you started Scramble, and but you also said that it's very easy to start a brand. You know, start a company, you make a website, you get a logo, you print a t-shirt. Not so easy to start a professional grappling show.
Yes, that remains one of the hardest things ever done in my life.
Polaris 1?
Yes. Like nervous breakdown levels of stress.
Because you had no experience in running events?
Nope. We had a streaming company, for example, and we were kind of meeting with them semi-regularly saying what we wanted to do. They were like, yeah, we get it. And then as we got closer to were you on Polaris 1? No,
I was meant to be on 1 and I got injured, and Ollie took my place.
Okay.
When he fought it.
Yeah.
I was meant to fight AJ, and then I tore my knee at ADCC trials. Ollie took my place, and then I tried to get vengeance from him at the second one.
It was awesome. Yeah. So I think if I remember, you know, it's a little bit muddled, but a few weeks out, we were meeting with the streamer company again, and they sort of said to us, yeah, we can't do this. They were like, you're not streaming a event, you are literally doing a sports broadcast for television, and we're not set up to do this. I think one person quit from like stress, and they brought in another director, and they were like, nah, we can't do this. And I can't remember if we changed last minute or the quote changed, but it went from like there's a camera streaming to actually no, we need 4 cameras, a vision mixer, a director, a satellite truck, you know. Because we had no idea. We just hired these guys thinking that they would do everything. There was that stress. Then there was the stress of dealing with all the athletes. We'd never met them. They'd never met us.
Because Polaris 1 was Keenan Cornelius versus Dean Lister.
Dean Lister, yeah. We had all kinds of hilarious things. Like we bought tickets for Abraham Mart to fly over. And then he was like, oh, by the way, I haven't got a passport. I'm going to apply for it now. And it didn't arrive. So we lost like £2,000 on these stupid flights from wherever he was in South America. And we had to get a last minute replacement. I think Dean Lister wasn't even due to fight. He was in Germany doing some MMA thing. And we like called him up, like, please get on the plane and come to England and fight Keenan. But I remember a few things I remember. I remember the weigh-ins. like I was basically having a panic attack non-stop because I was in a room about this big with the legends of jiu-jitsu. Andre Gaval was there cornering someone.
Was he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Eduardo Tellez was there. Just Kit Dale, just all these legends of jiu-jitsu. And it was just like, oh, what's happening? I was just so scared and so nervous. I think we left McGovern and someone to sort of deal with it, first of all, because we didn't know what was going on. And then, we had the fun run-in with the immigration police. Remember that?
Yes.
Gary Toner was there.
So go on, go.
Somebody grasped us up to immigration and said that we were like illegally bringing people into the country to work.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a grey area. Technically, you are allowed to come and compete in jiu-jitsu events and you're allowed to win prize money. That is legal.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But it wasn't. I think they were just about to change the rule, which is why they let us off quite lightly. But Gareth was in his office in Wales and some guys walked in suits. Have you heard this story?
I have not, no.
And they went, we need to speak to Gareth. And Gareth was like, yeah, fuck off. Just thought they were some random like salesman or something. They went, no, we're from the immigration department. And they're like, flash your IDs. He was like, what?
Wow.
And they said, we understand you're bringing people in from overseas to work in this country and you haven't got this and that bit of paperwork. So they really spanked him. And then he called me. And I clearly remember I was sat at my kitchen table with a laptop. I was so stressed because we were working from like the minute we woke up till midnight every night trying to get everything done. He called me and was like, are you sitting down? Yes. He's like, we are fucked. I was like, what? And basically they said, look, what you're doing is illegal. We're going to come to the event. We're going to close it down.
No.
And we were like, hang on a minute. Okay. Like regardless of whatever grey area we're working in with this particular thing, we're creating like jobs for all these people, even like streaming companies getting work, the staff at the show are getting work, the venue's getting paid, like that we're bringing culture, we're raising the culture in the community. And, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. They said, okay, we won't close the event, but we need to speak to everybody Sunday morning in the hotel. Okay, fine. We can agree to that. And, it was like an 8 a.m. meeting on the Sunday morning or something. And they were there with like guns and
no way
bulletproof vests. And
I imagine they came in the suits and then they heard that it was
jiu-jitsu.
It was 30 professional jiu-jitsu fighters and they decided that bulletproof vests and guns were necessary.
They sat down with a drunk Gary Tonon.
So this was the day after
the event. Day after. Gary hadn't had a wink of sleep. I think Eddie Cummings had just drank like 47 coffees. So he was like, and then half the Brazilians scarpered, which didn't turn up. And I think Keenan was there. And basically immigration gave a long speech about how you should always come into the country with the correct paperwork. And, if you ever do it again, you'll be in serious trouble. But soon after that, the rules changed where you can actually travel and go into a professional sporting event for prize money, as far as I understand it. So, yeah. But I remember I almost shed a tear when Keenan tapped out Dean Lister. That was like the last match.
Yeah.
It was like, fuck, we did it.
The relief afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad.
And has it got any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it took a long time, but yeah. And now we've got like a full-time member of staff, one or two, who take a little bit of the pressure off because we used to have to do everything. So now we don't. Got a good team. So it's a lot easier now.
And, I guess one of the advantages, and I guess you kind of get this a little bit through Scramble, but much more through Polaris, is it takes you guys, or it gives you a connection to so many places and so many people that most people wouldn't have any way of getting in with, that you must have met with so many big names in the sport.
Yeah.
It must be unbelievable. Yeah.
It still feels pretty weird.
But even like, you mentioned it earlier, and I know it wasn't to Polaris, but how did you get connected with Sakuraba?
I was trying to be a writer, but trying to be an MMA journalist, and I was emailing his office.
You were in Japan or in the UK?
No, back in the UK. Yeah. I knew because I knew people in Japan. There was a guy called Dan Herbertson that was doing photography and stuff over there. he knew quite a few people. I think I got the email address of his manager through him, and I was spamming them for interviews, and they were just going, nah, or just not even replying. I think after about 3 years of that, they agreed, and I got an interview, and that was like my little crack foot in the door, and then just built on it each time. You know, okay, I'm coming to Japan. Can I come and do a video interview with you? Okay, you know, I did that, and then at the video interview, I went, by the way, I've got this clothing company. We'd love to make some T-shirts. Okay, you know, it just like incrementally, it's just like relationship building, which is a huge part of business, I suppose. But that took a lot of personal effort and time, and so I won't go giving out his email address to anyone and everyone. You know,
they got to work for it just as hard. Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, you must have, obviously you've traveled all around the world filming promos, talking to different guys, training with different people. You must have some good stories from that's it, that's all I want. I just want the good stories through your travels through Scramble and Polaris to different people.
Okay. I think the most useless I've ever felt on the mat was against Eddie Cummings.
Okay.
Because that man not only has the strength of an ox.
Really?
Oh yeah. Just like, okay, I'm going to take a grip now.
Really? Small guy as well.
Yeah.
And
also, every movement I made was wrong. Everything ended in a heel hook. Doesn't matter where I went or what I did. And he was not even at 5%, I don't think. Yeah. That was fun. Who else? We've rolled a good amount of people. Ishii was quite scary, you know that. You
rolled with Ishii in Japan,
in Vegas.
Yeah.
The Vegas quintet was fun.
Yeah,
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we were all there.
Because that, of course, was the McGregor weekend. McGregor versus Khabib.
Yeah,
we were in Vegas for McGregor and Khabib.
We were in the bar watching that with that insane Russian that didn't pay his bar tab.
Yep.
What else have we done? New York. We used to regularly go to New York to film.
Because you were considering running an event there for a while.
Yeah, in fact,
you even put out a promo.
Yeah, we were almost ready to rock. That was just before Fight Pass signed us
and they said
you should just stay in the UK because it's good for the network. You know. We used to go to New York a lot because so many good guys were there and train with. Yeah, it was great. It was like a dream. You know, go over there, film those guys. Okay, filming's done. Get your gear on and train. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any good non-training stories?
I got a funny story.
Because that's what people like more than anything. They just want gossip and stories about jiu-jitsu athletes.
I don't think I can. Not too many that I want to talk about.
Well, that's the one. Like, it's my job as the host to try and get out as much from you as possible.
I'm trying to think if I've got any that are suitable for broadcast. I don't know. One of the trips to New York was quite fun. I think that the first night we got there, we met Gary Tonon, Gordon. You know, Gordon wasn't super famous at that point. He was a very quiet guy.
Yeah.
And Jeff Chu, who was managing all those guys, and first thing we did was went to an arcade bar in like Brooklyn or something where you get tokens to play arcade machines. And it got pretty spicy after that. Then we went to some truly bizarre underground crazy golf thing in another part of Brooklyn that was like neon crazy golf in a basement somewhere, but there was also a fried chicken joint and a karaoke thing all underground. And Gary Turner was singing karaoke at like the top of his lungs. That was a good one. I got a funny Scramble story.
Yeah.
You know, we had the Warriors license. Do you remember the Warriors?
Yes, that's right.
Have I told you this when we went to film over there?
No.
We went to do a promo. We wanted to do it properly. So we had the Warriors license from Paramount, the classic 70s gang film, filmed in New York. So we went over there to film a promo, and we got Dan and Phil Zeno that we sponsored to wear the stuff, and we filmed them in a few locations around New York. And then we were like, right, we're going to go to the actual locations from the film. And they were like, what? And we're like, yeah, we're just going to go and visit
I
the place.
imagine they're in not very nice areas.
Yeah, they were like, no. What do you mean? And it was even, we'd like flag a taxi. Can you take us? It was called Broadway Junction. Can you take us to Broadway Junction? Nope. And the taxi would leave. And we eventually found one guy. He was like, I'll take you, 500 meters from Broadway Junction. We're like, shit.
That bad?
Oh, that bad. Dan was like calling his wife, be like, look, just let you know, I'm going to Broadway Junction. If you don't hear from me,
No.
We were like, we thought it was funny. But as we got there, like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
And Mikey had like £1,000 camera on his shoulder. And when we got there, the police were clearing an insane homeless man away for his own safety. They're like, you need to get out of here, buddy. This place is not good. And we're like, wait, even the crackheads are getting moved on. We filmed for about 5 minutes. A car went around the block like twice. And then the third time slowed right down and started winding the window down. We were just like, fuck this. We just fucking like grabbed the stuff and ran off.
Did you actually run?
We like fast walked to the subway station. Like, please, let there be a train there.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, we had a good time in Japan, didn't we?
Yeah, Japan was awesome.
Did you go to karaoke? No.
I went to, I didn't. You went to karaoke. I went to a club with Josh Barnett.
Oh, yeah. Is it good?
In, what's the really shit?
Roppongi.
Roppongi. Yeah, Roppongi. It was all right. It was on like a Wednesday evening.
Yeah. Did they, Joshua, welcome.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Japan was cool. Japan was cool. Very different place.
Yes, that was one of the best, most surreal times ever.
Oh, yeah, that was like the best day of my life, probably. Oh, definitely up there.
Yeah, yeah. Now I remember, but the moment where I think you beat Tokoro or someone. Yeah. And then me and Ben were like, Strauss is going to fight Sakuraba.
Yeah.
What?
Fuck. Yeah, I remember I went back to the corner and they were like, now Sakuraba. And I was like, huh?
It's so ridiculous.
And then I always tell the story of he jumped over my guard. Like he used to always do like his legendary
cartwheel thing.
No, he used to do his legendary when he run and jump.
Oh,
and,
yeah, with
stomp
2 feet.
on them. And he jumped not to stomp on my head, thankfully, but to jump over the top. And he jumped, and I was just like, it was like my life froze, and I was like, because I was looking up, the lighting system that they had there was like insane as well, and it was in such a big, in the sumo arena, it was so big. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
this is crazy. This is a
life
legitimate,
is weird.
Yeah, this is like a surreal dream. Yeah, and Vegas was good as well for Quintet 3. So are they planning on running any other big events? Are they planning on getting, what I'm really angling for is Team Polaris going to get back together?
Get us back.
Yeah.
I'd like to think so. I don't know. We don't talk as much as we did for sort of various reasons, but I think everything's fine. But going back to what you said about promotions, they appear, they spooge a load of money, and then they go, the money hasn't come back yet.
Yeah. Well, I know that obviously, even though it was in Vegas the second time around, or the third time around, sorry, it was still obviously a smaller production than the first one.
Yeah.
The first one definitely had that feel of all of the money's going into, like, we had a press conference the day beforehand
in a
nightclub, like with reporters. It was like, I've never had that for any show that I've been on, even close to it. Yeah, it does feel that way, that they went in hard with the investors on the first event, and you're never gonna. You can never. Once you get past a certain amount of money, I imagine
it's hard to recoup it.
You will never recoup it from grappling.
But they had a very, very clear vision, which was really good. Which was to go mass market appeal. That's why at the end of every match, Yuki Nakai would come out and explain exactly what had happened. I don't know if you remember that.
No,
because he's speaking Japanese, but they would bring him out and he would explain. Right, so just what happened there is he took him down. And then he passed his guard, and then he applied this lock,
really?
which caused the other guy to give up. Oh, okay, because it was supposed to be that anybody could watch it, because they know that's where the money is, that's where the audience is, the wider audience.
And they're trying to get the goal of Quintet was to get a wide audience in Japan.
Yeah, But they had a really big worldwide vision. That's why they wanted to do shows in the UK, shows in America. But it's just hard, really, really hard. I think, and the other thing that makes it hard, like without getting too deep into it, there's, like you said, shows pop up, spend a shitload of money, and then disappear.
Yeah.
Which means that the show is not viable. But the athlete can jump from one of those sinking ships to the next and pick up a big paycheck along the way. You know, I'm going to fight for these guys. I'm going to get 10 grand. They're going to go bust. And now I'm going to fight for this other new show and I'm going to get 5 grand. They're going to go bust. And I'm going to go back to these guys. I'm going to get 10 grand again. They're going to go bust. So we're there. We probably pay less than some of these other shows, but we're still here.
Viable.
Because we have a budget. Nothing I would like more than to give all these guys every penny that they ask for, or we as a group of Polaris, everything you ask for. Why not? You know, if it was there, we'd give it to you. It's not there. So this is our budget. This is how we're going to keep the show going and keep you on the show, is by paying this much. If you don't like it, well, fine. Maybe we'll talk again in a year or two. But
yeah, that's interesting. So it's actually in the interest of the athlete for shows to do badly, as long as to do badly, as long as they get paid. To do badly in that they blow their load, as in their load of money, on one big show. Yeah. As long as there are other people willing to set up another show and do the same thing.
And I totally understand the athlete's point of view. Their professional careers.
Well, they're just looking after themselves,
and they want to make money. That's fine. You know, we've. But then on the other hand, there's some athletes that we work. Look, we're not ripping anyone off. Everyone's getting paid. Yeah. Everyone's getting looked after from beginning to end. Everyone's getting a hotel. Everyone is getting paid. Everyone's getting promoted. You know, it's not. It's a good proposition to fight on Polaris for sure. Like, people can immediately say, I'm a Polaris veteran if they've been on the show, and here's like hundreds of high quality photos and videos. They can use that to build their brand. Some people understand that. That's why we've had like big names without breaking the bank, because they know that they can build their next seminar tour or DVD off.
And they know that they're going to be able to come back to Polaris for years to come.
Yes.
Because it's going to be around. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I guess it's one of those things where you go, well, at some point people are going to realize that you can't spend $1 million on a grappling show and expect to recoup even a fraction of that.
Yeah, even Mo Jassim is getting bored of splooging money all over the place. He said so many times.
Well, he said that the next one will be his last one. So I guess with that said, what is the vision for Polaris in the future? Is that a mechanism that you even employ? You know, do you think about what Polaris? Do you have a vision of what Polaris is going to look like in 5 years?
We need to. I don't think we have a 5-year plan. No, we need to, because we're partnered with Tatami, Gareth and Lee, and they are in Wales. So we talk to them every day, but we need to have a few proper sit downs and come up with the strategy for next year and beyond. Really, we have a contract with Fight Pass that finishes at the end of this year, or not finishes. I mean, they're already talking about next year, which is awesome. But we need to make sure that everything is in place so that the show can be bigger and better, basically, and reach more people.
Yeah, and sort of Fight Pass is, I guess, apart from a live audience, is where you get the money to run the show from.
Basically, yeah.
Because the first couple of events you had a pay-per-view that you were running yourself. So I guess it all comes down to how much Fight Pass values the show and how much money they're able to give you to decide whether it grows or not.
Yeah, a lot of it does come down to simple numbers. Yeah.
And then in terms of sort of, in terms of having a live audience, how important is that? Because obviously for an event like the UFC, who have been able to run successfully throughout the last year and a half with no audience whatsoever, even when they have big gates, it's a fraction compared to the millions and millions that they're making through pay-per-view. I imagine that's very, very different for small shows such as, relative compared to the UFC.
Oh, yeah, we need the audience there big time. Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference in atmosphere, makes a big financial difference. Yeah. Like, Polaris needs all revenue streams functioning to be a viable business. You know, we can't just have the money for the broadcast. You need the ticket money, sponsor money, merch money. We're running it like a business. We don't have a rich investor, so it has to be a business. You know, most shows, in fact, I bang on about it all the time. I sound really bitter, but a lot of the big shows have just money men.
Yeah.
And we're competing against these people with like really deep pockets.
So if anyone's listening and you just really love jiu-jitsu and want to give, you know, $100,000 per event for Polaris, then I will take a mere 10% finder's fee.
Yeah.
And everyone's happy.
It's a deal.
Done.
Well, we know that we have some of the most watched shows ever on Fight Pass. You know, especially the ones that have the MMA guys in, like Uriah Faber.
Does it make a big difference?
What?
When you get the...
Yeah, huge.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Yes, but I think it's because that audience is already sort of half focused on MMA.
The average subscriber of UFC Fight Pass is not going to recognize any professional grapplers, but will recognize Luke Rockhold.
Oh yeah, I'll tune in and watch Uriah Faber wrestle some kid. Yeah.
Slap a kid.
Slap poor Nicky Ryan. But that makes a difference. You've got somebody that's got like 2 million followers on Instagram, and they're I'm gone Polaris. That's huge, you know. So that we got to work on it. We've got to get the formula. I like MMA grapplers can be really exciting as well. They quite often don't have the kind of stalling mentality that some jiu-jitsu guys might have, or not the positional. Well, that's not true.
I fought a UFC fighter and it was not the case.
You fought
Jake Shields.
Oh yeah. No comment. You were definitely trying though. I've seen the pictures.
I was trying, man. Yeah, he was not doing much. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So, do you think that is maybe that's another bridge between, you know, to grow jiu-jitsu is to actually get professional MMA fighters? I guess like it's sort of the grappling equivalent of, and I kind of hate to even bring it up, but what the Paul brothers are doing in boxing, which is such a bizarre situation that we have going on at the moment, which is, you know, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever that a couple of YouTubers who are only sort of famous because of children have got, and like KSI was doing it as well before.
Yeah, it's stupid.
They've just all got into boxing.
Yeah, yes, it's you've drawn an analogy, but it's not entirely accurate. There's a bit of nuance there because MMA guys have grappling as part of their training. Yeah, obviously, I know what you're saying.
But the
mass market appeal.
The comparison is only coming from the mass market appeal, and obviously, you know, the mass market of a Uriah Faber is much smaller, sadly, than the mass market of a random YouTuber who just, you know, and it's so strange that these guys have so much power in the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
purely because their medium is a platform that kids can watch. Because that's where it is. Like, how many 30 to 45-year-olds are watching Logan Paul or Jake Paul? Like, it's children. Where like the huge majority of their fan base.
It's very bizarre. And I just think nobody I think America is a victim of its own kind of weird mentality at the moment, where it's like celebrity and fame and money above all, basically.
So if Logan Paul messaged Polaris and said,
I want to grapple,
what would you do? It's sort of the business mind versus sort of the morals.
Say no.
That's a good answer. That is the only good answer because I don't think you come back from that, do you?
No.
I
mean, what's going to happen in boxing now?
Yeah, like boxing's been dying for years as well. I think it's almost the best time for them to have struck because it was at its weakest.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Yeah, you're right.
And the fact that boxing was once one of the biggest sports in the world.
Everybody would watch.
You know, like the levels of fame of Mike Tyson, of, you know, all of those guys.
George Foreman.
Yeah, you know.
Thanks to his grill. Yeah. it's a lot. There's a lot of discussion now about fighter pay, I understand what they're saying, but boxing and the UFC just don't compare. The UFC is a humongous ecosystem and infrastructure that they've, no doubt they're making good money, Dana and the owners or whatever, but they're also building this humongous structure that boxing just doesn't have. Like, they did all those shows in Abu Dhabi. We were talking about it in the office the other day. I'm sure Abu Dhabi contributed a lot of money to them, but they created this entire thing. It would have cost millions. All the testing, all the controls, all the specific new buildings they made,
But they were like the only sport in the world that was still operating in the real main, the belly of the beast of the pandemic. Yeah,
it costs money. They're not doing a perfect job, but they're also they're kind of been the trailblazers of MMA for years. They're right at the front, and now everyone's like, oh, fighters need some way of looking after them after they retire. Okay, now we're going to work on that. Fighters need health insurance. All right, we're going to add this now. They are building like a structure around it. So that's why I imagine that there's a big pay disparity, because boxing's like, make as much money as possible, take it away, and then do the next match. There's no like league that's developing talent, or I don't know the sport that well, but so it seems like to me.
Well, I feel like even though, I feel like MMA is a bigger sport than boxing.
Feels like it at the moment, for sure.
But even if you come down, if you compare the absolute maximum that a boxer can get paid for a single fight versus the absolute maximum that an MMA fight will get, but like there's a reason why McGregor and Mayweather did like 400 million or whatever. The UFC aren't going to have that per event, but they run how many events per year?
Yeah, exactly. And they're
also paying. And how many fighters do they have on their books?
Yeah, but you could, if they're on a good card, you can be interested in every match.
Yeah.
Whereas boxing's like the headline and then a bunch of literal like who.
Yeah.
So they're very different. I don't think you can compare them.
Yeah. And then moving on, another business that you have, or another brand that you set up. You have many. Almost would you consider yourself a serial entrepreneur?
Is that like an illness? Or?
It sounds like one, doesn't it? Which is technically.
Yeah.
So you've sort of another thing. You're sort of an example of every single brand that you can make around jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Clothing, shows,
events,
instructionals. How's that going?
It's all right. It's a kind of slow, organic process. We saw that there was a big industry developing around instructionals, but the ones that were out there when we started talking about it were only following a single sort of it had a very solidified position, which was big names, big prices, 11 hours long.
Yeah.
And like,
are those instructions really 11 hours?
Yeah.
Like those John Danaher ones? That's mad.
Yeah.
Who wants to watch 11? Like, is that actually... Obviously, people do, because they've sold many, many, many of those instructionals, but it seems insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I probably shouldn't say the name, but a very prominent instructional seller. I think you might have been there when they told this story. They did a 3 DVD set, and after they sold hundreds of them, and after a year or something, a guy went, "Oh, this third DVD doesn't work." And they, "Oh, that's strange." And they went back and checked, and basically every third DVD didn't work. But nobody had noticed.
Nobody had watched them.
Because nobody watched the whole thing. People just buy and hoard instructionals. Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it?
Well, yeah, so we thought, right, how can we do it then? Right, we'll do it shorter. It'd be like an hour.
Yeah.
We'll do it cheaper because, it's just another part of the market to occupy. And, we can't just go and ask like Craig Jones to do one because, so we'll go with like European talent or, So we're just kind of like seeing how it works. But it's, we're busy with everything, Scramble, with Polaris. So it'll get there eventually.
And like, who do you have? What instructions do you have on there at the moment?
Only people called Tom.
Okay.
Tom Barlow.
Okay.
Tommy Polkinen. Tom Halpin.
So Tom Neakley.
Yes, basically. It's like you're only allowed to work in Scramble if you're called Matt.
Yeah. So any Matts out there looking for a job, or Toms for that matter, looking for a job?
Yeah, we've got. It's a lot of, like you said, because we know people through the shows and through the brand, so it's just people that we.
Don't you have Imanari on there?
Yeah, but Imanari was hilarious.
His name translates to Tom.
That's the Japanese for
in
Tom.
Japanese. Yeah.
He just came down and we said, right, we're going to film this thing with you. He was like, okay, and then he spoke so little that when we edited it, it was 15 minutes long.
No way.
So we were like, well, we can't sell this. He just goes, Hirook.
He's an interesting character, isn't he?
He's the most authentic person I think I know in the world.
In what sense?
He doesn't give a fuck about who he's with, what you want from him. He just sat there looking. Yeah, what now? Do you want to do another technique? Yeah.
Didn't he dress up as a schoolgirl?
Yep.
Was that for an MMA fight?
No, it was him and Aoki dressed as schoolgirls for one of the magazines.
Yeah.
We were filming him for Polaris, so we followed him around Tokyo for a while, and he had an MMA fight, so we filmed the MMA fight, and we were interviewing him. We went, how's your MMA training going? Okay. You doing much striking? Yeah. Twice a day? Twice. So you train striking twice? Yeah. And then he got to the weigh-in, and he was like 200 grams over or something, and he went, just took all his clothes off, middle of the room, butt naked. Okay, pass.
No towel.
No towel, nothing. And just go and sit down. Right? Just like the most hilarious.
Yeah, I've only spent a bit of time with him, but he's pretty funny. And
He's stoic.
His Instagram is just
It's people's faces.
just people's faces from really close up.
He finally started a normal Instagram.
Did he really? I'm almost disappointed.
Nah.
So before we finish this podcast, on the topic of you having a business for every single thing outside of jiu-jitsu, what's the next business? What ideas are floating around? Because obviously, like, you're a creative person, you're an idea man. What other things, or I guess that might be giving up.
I do have an idea.
Giving ideas out to the general public before you've done it.
Yes, I do have an idea. I'm not going to share it. It's an app idea. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to be able to make an app, because if you hit the jackpot there,
Yeah.
but that's very hard to do. You need specialized knowledge. So if any app developers want to get in touch,
It's getting easier to make apps, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, but I suppose, like, just going back to what you said there, I think lots of people wonder about doing their own thing, and I think once you realize it's not impossible. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Once you realize it's not impossible, then it becomes much easier to do other things. So I was in an office job. Nothing wrong with office jobs. Office jobs make the world go round. But I didn't want to do it. So we started our own thing. And we realized, that was difficult, but not impossible. Why don't we try this other thing? Let's do a professional jiu-jitsu show. Yep, really fucking difficult, but not impossible. It's like once you do it once, then you realize you can. It's not impossible.
You realize you can do anything.
Kind of. Yeah. I'm not trying to be, super inspirational or anything, but people, you can do it. That's what I want to say. Yeah. I had a chat with a friend this morning who was kind of bemoaning stuff, and he's like, "Oh, you've got loads of ideas and stuff." I was like, "Yeah, just do it. Like, if you've got an idea, just try it. Even if it doesn't work, what's the big deal? At least you tried it." Yeah.
What a beautiful sentiment.
Thanks.
To end the podcast on. But remember, don't be too inspirational.
Nah, wouldn't want to do that.
Anything else you want to mention, Matt, before we go?
No.
You're good?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Cheers, mate.
And I'll catch you at Polaris I guess we should probably mention...
Oh, yeah, let's mention that then. July 17th.
We should probably mention Polaris, yeah. So, because it's looking like it's going to be one of the most popular events that you've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
I am super excited about it. Do you know what I'm excited about the most?
Fighting...
No. No. 5-minute rounds. You were so close.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I'm excited about 5-minute rounds.
You could just go ham.
I'm so excited for it. Yeah.
Team USA versus Team UK and Ireland. 5-minute rounds.
2 1-hour rounds.
Yeah, winner stays on.
And you can watch it on Fight Pass.
Fight Pass, for July 17th, or hopefully if the country opens up, you can come and watch it live.
So how many tickets have you sold so far?
Well, we sold 50% of the capacity.
Yeah. So then you'll open up the second 50%. I think it'll probably be around about the time this is released. I'm not sure if this will be before or after. But fingers crossed, the country opens up July 21st and we can pack that room out.
That'd be incredible.
And, just the one thing that I want to say about sort of professional grappling events and Polaris in general is go see these events live. Go see them. I think a lot of people, when it comes to Polaris, a lot of people can have a bad habit of, and it's natural, of thinking there's so many of them, they're always consistently good. Why go to this one? We can just go to the next one. And then what you end up having is, it becomes harder for organizations to run like that. Yeah. And, I also think that one of the reasons why this is selling so fast, not only is it, an incredible show and the fighters and the format is great, but I think people are appreciating the fragile nature of our very existence and realizing you don't know whether you're going to be able to go and see a show. I think when people realize that stuff that they took for granted
got taken away.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll just be so much fun. You ever been to the UFC? Of course you have.
Yeah.
They play that video in between the prelims and the main card.
They play Baba O'Reilly.
Yeah. We've got one of those. Oh. And you can only see it in the venue. So it's not going to be on the broadcast. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, because Cage Warriors have one as well.
Yeah, they have one. Ours is... I'm not going to say what song
don't say what it is.
Don't say what it is. So you have to watch it live. Also, one more thing before we go.
Yeah.
Right. Looking at the two teams, which matches do you think are interesting, right?
Yeah.
Shall I read it out real quick?
Yeah. Go.
So we've got Dara O'Connell, Ross Nichols, Brad Hill, Ashley Williams, Tom Halpin, Kieran Davin, and Ben Dyson. And the Americans, we've got JT Torres, Edwin Najmi, Boogeyman, Nick Ronan, PJ Barch, William Tackett, John Blank, and Cade Rotolo. So you can have any combination of those two.
Okay, so I guess the way to do it is go through one of the teams and just match up everyone.
Well, I would like... Okay. Well, Tom Halpin's probably the smallest guy.
Yep.
Could Tom Halpin do damage to Boogeyman?
Maybe.
A heel hook.
Yeah, maybe.
Or Dan Strauss versus Cade Rotolo. Imagine that.
As long as he doesn't buggy choke me.
Oh, God, yeah. I think that's the excitement of the team format. Who's going to come out next?
The emotions of, or like the psychology, I remember in the first quintet. The first quintet, when we were the second teams on, I remember all of the teams in the changing room watching the first two teams go on, and we had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. We had no idea, because at least after the first event, when we did the third event, we had an idea of how it would work. The first one, we had no idea what it was going to look like. And it was crazy as well. That first round was so mad. And it's the same for this. You have no idea what's going to happen. I remember on Quintet 3, I was the last fighter on the team. I was for the first one. I never got to fight.
The backstop.
And on the second one, I was also the last fighter. And I remember we sort of, in our mind, we worked out, he's probably going to do him, and he might draw with him, and then you probably won't fight. And what was it like? Shaolin had a great match with PJ, and it looked like it was going to go to a draw, and then PJ caught him at the end. And then I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, that wasn't to plan. So I get up and I start warming up. And then Gregor comes out and taps PJ. So I sit back down. and then someone comes out and taps Gregor, or Gregor draws or something. And then something else happened. Basically, the whole time I was standing up, started warming up, thinking that was going to go on. Then I sat back down and I'd stand back up again. I still think, and that 40-minute round Polaris team versus 10th Planet is on YouTube.
Yeah, it's got millions of views. It's incredible.
I tell people, like, this is, if you want to watch grappling, watch this, because it is such a crazy back and forth. You know, like when Marcin held kneebarred Gio Martinez.
Who is he? I don't know. Is he good?
The next day, the story goes, the next day when I was, we were walking around the hotel, and I was walking with Marcin, and I said, Marcin, I can't believe you tapped Gio Martinez. And he goes, who is he? I'm like, he's one of the best grapplers, you know, he's one of the best in the world.
Impossible to tap.
Yeah. He's one of the best in the world. And he's like, I don't know. Because he just follows MMA. Like, he just doesn't.
was hilarious, wasn't
Mate, he was like the most unintentionally funny guy.
Deadpan.
Yeah, he's brilliant. But yeah, so Polaris coming up soon, just over a month away. Super excited for it. And if you can't get to it, watch it, support Polaris, because they're fighting the good fight. And if I'm not fighting, I'm usually commentating. So you get to hear or see me one way or another.
That's the main thing.
And if you listen to this podcast, that's what you're here for anyway. And Matt, thank you very much for being here and talking about all the things that you're doing to help promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA behind the scenes in the UK and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Nice one, buddy. That is all, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to follow or find out more about Matt himself, then you can follow him on Instagram at matthew.benyon. That's Benyon. You should also certainly check out all of the brands that Matt is associated with, especially Scramble, which you can find on Instagram and Facebook, and also Polaris Professional Grappling, which you can also find on Instagram and Facebook. Speaking of Polaris, we did speak about the squads event that I will be competing in July 17th or on July 17th. If you cannot make it there, if you can't get tickets, we're still waiting to find out whether we can release or whether they can release the second round of tickets. But if you can't get tickets to this event, then make sure you watch it on UFC Fight Pass live on that day. And if you have the opportunity to get to a Polaris event live in person, then go for it. Why not? It's fun. You know, get to some well-run professional grappling events whilst you can, because you never know. You never know. As for myself, if you want to contact me, then you can find me mainly on Instagram. My Instagram handle is raspberry_ape. You can find me on YouTube, where I have mainly these podcast episodes and some other stuff like Stones and Strangles, which is a mini-series documentary that I released last year about me lifting stones in Scotland and teaching Jiu-Jitsu. And they have some other grip instructions and stuff like that on there. And that is youtube.com/raspberry. You can go to my website if you want, where you can buy some merch and also my grip training instructional, which I haven't actually promoted on here yet, but I should at some point, which is raspberryape.com. If you want to email me, then email me at podcast@raspberryape.com. And obviously, if you haven't already, subscribe on whatever platform you like to subscribe to this podcast, because I have the intention of having many, many more episodes launched directly at your ear holes in the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and I hope to catch you next time. Take it easy.